Hello YouTube world, it's Mara and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is the first time you're watching me. Now trust me, I know. My makeup looks crusted, dusted, musted, busted. Okay, but that is the whole point. We're gonna get ready and unpack the last quarter of fully showing up for myself. So if you don't know, this time last year, I made a commitment to myself that I was fully going to show up for myself for the entire year of 2023 and just see what happens, what pops up, what I learn, etc. So we are wrapping up the year and doing our entire fourth quarter, and buckle up because this was a fucking wild one, okay? I unpacked so much shit. And I'm going to be very vulnerable with you guys, so we're going to go deep into it. So just keep watching. To start off quarter 4, I have to take you back a little bit to quarter 3. So quarter 3, I definitely let a lot of my normal habits of journaling, meditating daily, exercising on a regular basis, taking my supplements, and everything that brought me to like a very good headspace, I let all of that go. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm tired of putting in all this work, which it is work, but still not feeling good. But of course, that brought me down to an even worse mental headspace. Who would have thought? So then that took me to a point where I was just thinking, like, why am I here? Why am I here? I know I don't want to keep living the same day, month, year over and over again and just feeling like I'm in that hamster wheel effect. That led me to really try and connect with my inner child through meditation. And what I discovered was powerful. For me, my inner child wants to feel seen, expressed without limitations, loved unconditionally, and most importantly, she wanted to be believed in, that she could accomplish her dreams and realize her full potential. And those were thoughts that scared me a lot. I had to open up more and show all sides of me, not just what I think people want to see. That curated image, which honestly, this realization led to an explosion of realizing traumas. Then came a conversation with my mom that triggered me and led me to realize I have quite a big trauma with money and finances. Triggers are so important to look into because they show us the unhealed parts of ourselves. I feel like money was always a touchy subject in my house, and we definitely had some sayings that illustrated the limited beliefs around money. I remember probably around adolescence / maybe teenage years, feeling the actual weight of the money problems and the lack of security. Debt was an issue, bills were not paid on time. I vividly remember being like 13 or 14 years old and wishing so badly that I could get a job because I felt like a burden and this way I could help. Then my parents divorced. I definitely became financially traumatized. As soon as I graduated high school, my dad left and cut myself and my sisters and my mom off financially. We had some bills and rent backed up, so it was difficult and traumatizing. My entire sense of security was ripped right out from under me. I didn't know if I was going to have a place to live in 2 or 3 months, so inevitably I repeated the same cycle as my parents. I got into some debt and I'm working to pay it off. And the shame surrounding debt is another compounding issue. There's so much shame surrounding debt and how I feel I can't openly talk about how I was financially irresponsible growing up without feeling so judged and critiqued, but in reality I was just repeating and utilizing the same knowledge, or the only knowledge I saw growing up. I'm working on removing a lot of that shame from having debt and trying to view my debt more as a learning experience instead of a complete failure, and also as a result of my own personal choices and a bit from my environment. I only knew what I saw growing up at that time. Obviously now I understand the power of free will and Google and just the internet in general and books and learning about these things, but I didn't at that point, and that's okay. And I also just want my inner child to know that she was never a burden and it was never her responsibility to stress over bills and rent and groceries. I want her to know that her value and worth are not tied to her financial situation currently or growing up or whatever it may be in the future. And throughout this entire healing journey, all I keep hearing is about needing to work with your shadow self. You need to get to know your shadow self. Work with your shadow self. It will teach you things about you didn't know. But I never fully was able to understand the full idea or context behind it, I think, until now. Or at least this is the way that I utilized it and view it that has helped me tremendously. So the way I kind of came to discover parts of my shadow self was as I was journaling, I but basically brought to the surface this deep-rooted belief that I have of always being la niña buena, or the good girl. And how growing up, there was these unspoken or very much spoken expectations that you could not fuck up. And that led me to create this connection in my brain that if I did fuck up, if I did mess up, I was no longer lovable. I was no longer worthy of acceptance. I was no longer worthy of love in general. And this was further reinforced by me feeling more loved. This might not have been the case, but my feelings are valid, and this is how I felt. I felt more loved when I brought really good grades home, when I knew I was on my mom's good side because my sisters, or one of my sisters, had messed up. I just felt more loved when I knew I was being la niña buena. While my mom's love may be unconditional, I only felt it more when I was portraying that niña buena role. And quite honestly, I never felt like I got any love from my dad. And thus leads us into the daddy issues. My dad was very much an absent father. While he was there financially growing up and physically half the time, he was a truck driver. He was never there emotionally. November 17th, I was driving home, and I only know this because I journaled this on November 17th. I was driving home and literally just thinking about how growing up, I so badly wanted his approval and love. I would pretend and mold myself into things he liked to see if that would create a loving relationship between us. Spoiler alert, it didn't. And I'm dealing with this duality because I definitely hold rage, anger, and sadness for him not being there. But another part of me feels compassion, empathy, and sadness because I know he didn't receive the love and care and acceptance he needed either. So I'm trying to validate my feelings and release this trauma while simultaneously not negating them because I understand and empathize with his behavior. But in the moment, I just kept saying how I wish he gave enough of a fuck to be there. Even just pretend for a little while that he cared about my hobbies and not scoff every time I said something because he didn't agree and thinks I'm incompetent. I wish for 2 seconds he would step out of his own bubble to fucking realize I needed him. I often did think to myself, maybe he just wasn't meant to be a dad. But I know that's just my pain talking. For so long, I couldn't fathom the idea of another guy being interested in me. I felt so unlovable and so unworthy in all aspects of my life. The way my dad would talk to me when I had to help him run his business made me feel useless and took all the confidence, the little I had at the time, away from me. He instilled so much self-doubt into me. He made me view relationships as transactional, like I'm only worthy when I have something of value to offer someone else. I'm working on releasing that anger, sadness, and rage. I know it's only harming me. I now know that I was always worthy of love. I am lovable. Now on to the results of my 75 hard, but I'm not super consumed by the results physically as I am mentally because as you can see, I had a plethora of mental trauma uncoverings, but anyway, let's get into it. So I originally had started the 75 hard because, as I said in the beginning, I had let go of all my habits and I really just wanted to challenge myself. With that being said, within the 75 hard, it tells you to take a daily progress photo, which over time became harder and harder for me to do because I would get into this mindset of critiquing my body almost daily, of what areas I can improve and I'm not progressing as much as I like. And then one day it kind of just fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. And this thought just popped into my brain as I was analyzing my body. And it was, if it wasn't for your close proximity to the beauty standard, in this case, thinness, would you still love your body? Would you still cherish it and adorn it? And honestly, the answer was no. I absolutely would not. And that led me to dive even deeper into my thoughts surrounding confidence. And I realized that that's how I had built a lot of my confidence. I, for so long, did not feel beautiful because I wasn't the beauty standard. And then I felt pretty because I realized where I fell on the beauty scale. And I feel like it's that cheesy quote that everyone says, maybe not everyone, but I feel like I've heard it on a movie before. That's like, would you still love yourself if the whole world was telling you not to? Because it's so easy to say yes when you're in close proximity to the beauty standard. I feel like this was a huge contributing factor as to why I struggled so much with my worthiness and my confidence in general. I had built, if not all, a huge percentage of my confidence on the sticks of what society deemed I was good enough for. And now I'm learning to love and cherish the vessel that I'm in while I'm on this earth, in spite of what I look like and in spite of its proximity to beauty and what is deemed beautiful. And also knowing deep within my bones that it will never be able to fully display or illustrate how multifaceted, multidimensional, multi-layered of a being I am. I am worthy. I am love. I am lovable. I made myself some sleepy time tea while we discuss the short but impactful 2 biggest lessons I think I learned in quarter 4. So the first one being, I learned that I have to break my patterns if I want different results. And I feel like that sounds so fucking simple, but it's so difficult when it literally is already a habit and a pattern. What I'm doing right now is not going to get me to my dream life because otherwise I would already have it. I have to change my habits. I have to change my way of thinking. I have to change my patterns. And secondly, this one hit me like a fucking ton of bricks on Christmas Eve. But I have to stop making myself small and dimming my light for other people's egos and their emotional state. And I feel like for so long, I tried to make myself so small and I dimmed my light because I didn't want to attract judgment and criticism. But I've come to realize 2 things. One being, it's not my responsibility to regulate someone's emotional state or boost their ego by making myself small. And 2, it doesn't matter how small I try and make myself. Someone will always be judging me. Someone will always be intimidated by me. Someone will always be praying for my downfall. And in the process of trying to make myself small to avoid these things, I only make myself miserable. So what a profound year 2022 has been. Literally, I feel like such a different person than when I started the year. And it's incredible. I literally could fucking cry from the amount of emotional growth I feel like I've had and just how much trauma I feel like I've healed. And if not fully healed, I'm definitely on the process of healing it. I'm just so fucking excited for 2023 and what the year will bring and what kind of growth I'll have. And there's just so much to look forward to. And with that being said, peace and blessings, and I'll see you guys next year.